everyone, love me here. I am here finally with my life update, homeschooling update, and channel update. First of all, I want to apologize for this video coming out so late. The plan was to have it out in the beginning of May, but May turned out to be a busier month than what we thought, so I just was not able to get it up, and I did not have the motivation to do this video because of all the busyness. So here we are. I'm going to do it. I'm hoping that the video is not too long because I want to cover all of these three topics in this one video. So moving on, I want to thank all my old subscribers for continuing to support my channel and hanging out with me. And I can hope that you'll continue to hang out with me even with the new changes that I'm having to my channel. I want to thank all my new subscribers and welcome everybody. A little bit about myself. I am a wife. I've been married for 13 years now. I'm a mother of two awesome boys. Our oldest, we call him Biggs. He is our son who has special needs. And then our youngest, we call Little. He is 7, and he is what you would call typical development. So he has no developmental delays or mental delays. Okay, I want to explain to you guys a little bit about Biggs. Like I said, Biggs is our oldest. He'll be 16 at the end of this month. He has anoxic brain damage, cerebral palsy. He has hypertension, not hypertension, uh, gosh, he's hyperspastic. So his muscles can tighten up a lot and it can cause him to have spasms. He is nonverbal, which means he does not talk the way I talk, but he can make noises and sounds, and he can get across what he's trying to convey through his noises and sounds and body language. He is non-ambulatory, which means he's not able to walk, so he uses a wheelchair. He does have some vision impairment. He's not completely blind. He does respond to light. I believe he responds to shadow, but I know he responds to light. So what he can see, we just don't know because he's not able to tell us. And he's tube fed, so he doesn't take anything by mouth. It all goes through a tube that goes into his stomach. So that is him. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get into the life update. The reason why I have not been doing anything on this channel for a while is because Biggs has had surgery. He had surgery November 29th for his spine. His scoliosis got bad, and my husband and I decided to do the surgery. Now I want to backtrack really quickly to how we got to this decision. In 2016, Biggs had, you gotta forgive me guys, I got so much information going on here and I'm trying to make sure I have it right and convey it as clearly as I can. So Biggs had hip surgery in 2016. When he had the surgery, of course, they had to do x-rays. So his doctor at the time said, well, let's take an x-ray of his back. So he took an x-ray of his back and we saw his curves. And his curves was more so like an S. Some people that have scoliosis, theirs is like a C. So he would hunch over a lot like this. So his top part would hunch over and then his pelvis would tilt forward. That's how his went. So he didn't really lean to the side. So the doctor did mention the option of surgery at that time. My husband and I decided not to do that. We felt the hip was more important because it was causing him immediate discomfort and pain. Now, when we saw that x-ray in 2016, the curves, the degree of curves were not as high as they were in 2017. They were like 45. So the doctor said, okay, since his hip is more of an immediate need, we'll deal with that. Because my husband and I were not willing to do 2 major surgeries in the same year. We felt like that would have been a lot for Biggs. And just to let you guys know, His hip surgery was not his first surgery. He's had multiple surgeries. I mean, we're ranging up into like the 20s as far as surgeries are concerned. So it was not his first surgery by any means. But it was definitely more invasive. I mean, a lot of surgeries are invasive, but this one was definitely a lot more invasive. And with him being older, it was just a different it was a different feel because he's older. In some ways, he's aware what's going on. So, like I said, we decided to not do spine surgery then because of the curves were still under 50 degrees. I think one curve might have been 50. I can't remember, but the other one was not that bad. And to tell you guys the truth, my husband and I did not have peace about doing spine surgery in 2016. Um, we had peace about doing the hip surgery, but we did not have peace about doing the spinal surgery. So the doctor said, let's come back in a year, or like I think it was a year, and he said we'll check his back and see, what's going on. So from that, of course, we kept going back to check his hip and all of that and see how he was doing. So fast forward to 2017, July 2017, we went for his appointment specifically for his back. He got the x-rays done. The doctor, they have the x-rays up on the board. Before the doctor even turned around, my husband and I could see how significant the curves had got. They had got worse. And my husband just looked and he said, he's going to have surgery. And his doctor turned around. He said, yeah, you guys can see that the curves have gotten worse. And I do want to let you guys know, this is just a little sidebar. When Biggs was in public school, he got physical therapy. Even here at home, we did things with him. I just want to let you guys know, physical therapy, depending on the individual and their disability and how it's already affecting them, physical therapy does not mean that they won't have to have surgery for scoliosis. If anything, it will just prolong it. And I'm saying that because since we've been through this, we know two other families personally whose children who are special needs as well. They are still in the school system, still getting their therapies, and they are about to have the same surgery that Biggs had. So, like I said, I just want to let you guys know, just because a person with special needs and they have cerebral palsy and they have or they have scoliosis, just because they're getting physical therapy doesn't mean that they might not have to have spine surgery in the future. It just means that therapy could be prolonging the need for it. So back to what I was saying. So we saw how bad the curves had got. We were at like 85, and it was just a major difference. So we figured out what we needed to do. And of course, the doctor told us, he said, you guys don't have to have him have the surgery. There are some parents that choose not to do spinal surgery with their children. And we talked about the cons of not doing that. And the cons to us were significant. If we chose to not do the spine surgery with Biggs, that means he could have probably had congestive heart failure. He could have lung problems or breathing problems, because how his curve was, it was getting so pronounced. I mean, he'd be like this. And even when he would be in his wheelchair, he has a head strap, but he would still try to get his head down. And then he'd be, breathing like that. I'm kind of exaggerating, but sometimes his breathing would be labored. And that's what I'm saying. And again, if we would have allowed him to not have the surgery, it would have gotten worse. And we didn't want that for him. My husband and our goal concerning Biggs is always giving him the best quality of life that we can. And no parent, wants their children to have a surgery as invasive as a spine surgery. But again, the pros in some regards outweigh the cons. Did I say that the con was congestive heart failure and breathing problems? I don't think I said that statement right, so I apologize if I didn't say that statement right, because I don't think that would be. I mean, that's a negative thing, but I don't think that was a con to him having the surgery. That was a pro for him having the surgery. We don't want him to have congestive heart failure and breathing issues, and where the curves would be so pronounced that it would start squishing the internal organs. That's where I was trying to go to. But so we had a whole bunch of pre-op appointments. We had to meet with the anesthesiologist. We had to meet with the hospitalist. We had to meet with somebody from the NICU, and of course, regular appointments with his surgeon. Now, thankfully, the surgeon that did his hip surgery is the same surgeon and doctor that did his spine surgery. So we had already had a good parent, doctor, patient relationship. That's a lot to say. So we were comfortable with him, doing this. And there were times where we had appointments where we were in there probably, longer than what I don't want to say should have been, but for a while, because my husband and I, we would ask questions and throw out ideas and just make sure that we were all on the same page throughout this whole thing. And his doctor was very respectful and took our concerns and our thoughts and our suggestions into consideration. So we decided to do the surgery in the fall. His doctor did not want to do it in winter, especially with us living in the Midwest. Sometimes our winters are just crazy, and who wants to deal with that? So we chose this November 29th. And like I said, we met with all those other people throughout this process. The biggest things that we were concerned for Biggs was infection. And we were trying to do what we could do to have his body be in the best that it could be to fight off an infection if an infection came about, and to have his body be in the best place that it could be to recoup. Because the surgery was so invasive, protein was very important. So we started upping his feeds, giving him more protein. I started giving him this vitamin D3 plus K2 oil. It's to help boost the immune system. Guys, I apologize for the lighting. I am in a part of my house where it's a little bit more quiet, but the lighting is not good at all. But I'd rather have quiet than to have a video that has great lighting and it's all noisy. But anyway, I digress. So we use that. And we did have to stop using this like 10 days prior to the surgery. And we were also giving him black seed oil, but I don't have any more of that, so I can't show you guys the bottle. But we were giving him black seed oil. We were also giving him this super collagen. And super collagen helps hair, skin, nails, joints, and bones. And this is non-GMO, gluten-free, and it's grass-fed collagen. And we're still giving him all three of these things that I'm about to show you. And then we were giving him vitamin C. And what I would do, like I said, he is tube fed. So what I would do is just add a scoop of this and this into his feeding bag, and it would just go through with his feed. Well, I would do this with water. So we were doing that. And like I said, he had to get blood work done because they wanted to make sure that they wanted to check his total blood count. They wanted to check his protein. They wanted to check his liver, kidney function, all of that. So his protein, it was fine. It was good enough for him to be able to do the surgery. We also had to see his other specialists. We had to see his neurologist. We had to, and the reason why we had to see the neurologist is because with this surgery, sometimes children after having this spine surgery can have seizures. So we just wanted to have his neurologist on standby and talk about any possible things concerning that if that was to arise. But he did not have seizures after the surgery. We had to see his gastroenterologist, um, basically to just make sure he, as far as his food standpoint, because his gastro doctor dealt with his food and stuff like that. We had to see the dietitian. She dealt with that too, so they worked together. And we had to see his general doctor. No, and we had to see his spastic doctor. So there was 4 additional doctors, not additional, but 4 doctors that we had to see as well, to basically get the clear that Biggs was suitable for this surgery. And all his doctors were fine with it. And these are doctors that we've had a relationship with for years. So it was no issues there. So, like I said, we did everything we could to have his body in the best possible health it could be for this surgery. The surgery was very intense, guys. It was a 6 to 8 hour surgery. Talking also about pre-surgical stuff where they gotta get them prepped and all of that. I mean, we're probably talking close to 10, maybe 11 hours just with the whole thing all together, getting them prepped and all of that. So I made sure he was clean all the way up into the surgery. I mean, I do that anyway, but just extra, clean, and making sure that his back was as clean as it could be. The doctors did give me this special cleansing stuff specifically for the back, and I had to do that the day before the surgery. So we take him in, and my husband and I, we like I said, we had to have peace about this. This was a hard decision. It wasn't just something we went into lightly, but we had peace. We had peace that he was going to get through the surgery, and we had to prepare ourselves for any complications that came after. And again, the biggest thing was infection. So he had the surgery. He came out of the surgery fine. He did well, and he had to go to the NIC unit. And the reason why he had to go to the NIC unit is because he had to keep the ventilator in for at least 24 hours, if I can remember. But we knew all about that from pre-op appointments. And the reason why they wanted him to be on the ventilator is because with his body going through so much, they didn't want him to work so hard to try to breathe, on his own. And he was still heavily sedated and under those heavy pain meds. So he was in the NICU for about a day or a day and a half, and then we got switched to the floor. And from there, he started just slowly, progressing, showing that he was ready to go home. Much of that is kind of a blur. So yeah, much of that is kind of a blur. Not much. We just kept an eye on his back. They rolled him. He wasn't allowed to be on his back a lot, especially those first couple of days after the surgery. So there was a lot of rolling, putting these type of pillows. These are called Z foams, and you get to bring these home when he's discharged. And they come in multiple sizes. This is just one of the smaller ones, but we would roll these and put him underneath. Typical things after a person has a surgery, you want to make sure that their bowels start to kick back in to where they're having a bowel movement, they're passing urine. If they need oxygen, they're at the point to where they can breathe room temperature air and stuff like that, that their stats are where they need to be for them. So what I mean is their heart rate is where it needs to be for them. Their respiratories is where it needs to be for them. Their pulse ox is where it needs to be for them. Those are all, if those things are all looking good, all the vitals are looking good, those are good signs that, hey, you can get ready to go home. So he came, okay, I'm trying to think. He had the surgery November 29th. He came home early. He came home, of course, early December because it wasn't that many days left in November. But I just can't remember the exact day. So he comes home. Um, when he came home, we had he had a gel mattress overlay over his bed, and we were hoping that that was gonna, help him, but it wasn't supporting the way we wanted it to. And I did notice he started throwing up on the one antibiotic that he came home on. So that caused some problems because when we went to feed him, we had to feed him really slow. So, and what I mean by feeding him really slow is he's connected to a pump. So he has a feeding bag, and we connected to the pump, and then the pump, you set it for a time or a speed, and it goes at that speed. So since he was throwing up from this antibiotic, and it only happened when he got the antibiotic with his food. So once I realized that, I said, oh, he can't have the antibiotic and his food at the same time. So I'd have to give him the antibiotic, and then I waited about a half hour to an hour later, and then he would get fed. And it went so slow because I didn't want him, throwing up. So he had to be on his back a lot at home. So we were using these pillows to kind of lift him so he wasn't directly on his back. So I don't want to say he was just directly on his back, but he wasn't off of it as much as we wanted him to be. And then of course when it was time to go to sleep, he had to be, on his back, because with him, if we have him on his side too long and you're not watching him, he does have bed rails, but there's just that chance that he might roll forward into the railing, or he could roll back, just kind of a little hard, and he could hurt himself rolling back on that tender spot on his back. So, I mean, because the incision, and I'll show you guys some pictures of of his back. It goes from the base of his neck, all the way down. So we had to just figure this all out. We kept his bandaging clean and all of that stuff. When he was a week out, oh, no, that wasn't that time. Okay, I'm trying to make sure I got things correct. So when he was a week post-op, he went to the doctors. My husband took him to see the doctor and the nurse practitioner. Everything looked fine. He was healing. My little one is upstairs, so when he moves around, hold on, guys. Okay, guys, I'm back. So I think the last thing I was saying was he came home. He stayed more than 5 days, I believe, in the hospital after that initial spine fusion. And let me backtrack before I get to his first post-op appointment. So the plan for his surgery was to go in and put rods and screws all along the back, and then that was supposed to help fuse the bone together. So it was like a spinal fusion, and he also got hardware. That's the best way I can explain it. So we got the clear for him to come home. Like I said, I mentioned about the feedings. We noticed that he was throwing up on the antibiotic. When he would get the antibiotic along with his food, like if he got those within a close proximity of each other, he would throw up. And when we prolonged his feeding after he got the antibiotic, he wouldn't throw up. And we had to make his feeds go longer to make sure things stayed down, and he couldn't really be on his side a lot when he ate, because he's the type of child that if he's on his side too long and he's eating, he would, throw up a little bit. So whenever he ate, he had to be, on his back. And we always made sure we had some of these kind of underneath him to kind of not allow him to be so much on his incision. So now, like I was saying, so he went for his first post-op appointment. My husband took him, and things were looking good. The incision was healing except for this one spot, and that spot was where his curve was the most pronounced. So like I showed you guys earlier, he curved over like this a lot. So kind of like right in the middle up here is where his curve was the most pronounced. So he came home. My husband told me how the appointment went, and within a few days, I went to check his back, because I checked his back every day. So how am I trying to say this? So as a few days passed, that's I guess what I'm trying to say. I noticed some drainage from that trouble spot. That's what we called it, the trouble spot, and where his curve was the most pronounced. So I called his doctor's office immediately, and I told them what was happening, and I said, "Is this normal?" And the doctor's nurse said, "No, that's not normal. We have for him to have drainage right there." I told her there was no odor. I told her that he didn't have a fever, and she said, "Well, can you guys bring him in the next day so that the doctor can see him?" So we said, "Sure." I mean, of course we said sure because we want to make sure everything's okay. So we get him in the next day, and his doctor said, "Well, it doesn't look infected." And of course, he was happy that we called him so soon and that we could get in. And he said, "We're going to start a wound vac." So we did a wound vac, and a wound vac is basically this white padded thing, and it was on his back, and it seals really good. And then it had this battery operated pack, and it would buzz. And when it would buzz, it would sound like a little vacuum, so it would like kind of tighten around the skin. And we use that to help to the purpose of that was to help try to close that part of the incision that wasn't closing. So, and then we also started an antibiotic. We started an antibiotic just in case an infection was brewing. So we did the wound vac for a week, because the way it worked, with it being battery operated, it was programmed to work for a week. So we took him that Tuesday in December. So then we came back that following Tuesday. We looked at it. We saw that it was closing a little bit. So we did another wound vac. So we did it for 2 weeks. So when that second week came, it looked much better. It was closing. It looked good. So we decided, my husband and I and the medical and his doctor and stuff, we decided that, okay, we're just going to continue to put dressing on it. We weren't going to do a wound vac for a third time. And he was still, I think he was off of the antibiotic for this time, because I think the antibiotic he was on was for 14 days. So same rules apply, try to keep him off of it as much as possible. Use these, on him to kind of help him tilt it so he's not on it. So we were doing all of that. Keep the dressing cleaned, all of that. So things were looking good. We come home, like I said, we only did the wound vac for 2 weeks because he was progressing, he was doing good. Some days go by, maybe even a week went by, and I noticed it started to reopen again. And I'm like, okay, but nothing crazy. So I don't want to make this part too long. Short end of the story is it reopened and he got infected. Now, throughout the little pieces that I'm not telling you, I kept his doctor in the loop. We have my chart, so I was taking pictures and sending him pictures. I constantly smelled his wound to make sure it didn't smell funky and stuff like that. But it did not look good. It didn't look good, but it didn't have a smell, and he did not have a fever. Um, so we got in. So basically, we made it through. Basically, we made it through the month of December, because it probably wasn't until January. We made it through December to January. January is when it started getting bad. About the middle of January is where it started getting bad, and we were getting concerned. So up until that point, everything was fine, or not really fine, but it wasn't alarming to the point that where it got in January. And like I said, I was keeping his doctor in the loop. So January comes, we set up an appointment to go see his doctor again, and it was January 23rd, which was my birthday. And before we went in to see his doctor, the lab called us to come in before his appointment to get lab work done, because that was going to save us time once we were up in his doctor's office. So, because if there was anything wrong, the doctor would already have the results, versus us going to see the doctor and then going down to the lab. And with Biggs, he's a hard stick. So, we go up. The doctor sees him. He looks at it, and he was like, "Yeah, this doesn't look good." Like I said, we went and got labs first. So then we went up to go see the doctor, and he looked at it. He was like, "Yeah, this is not looking good," and he was just thanking, me again for keeping him in the loop, sending pictures through my chart, and letting him know what was going on. And he wanted to go get an X-ray. He wanted basically to get an X-ray to make sure that the rods were still in place. So he went and got the X-ray. My husband went with him to the X-ray room. Him and Little went to the X-ray room to get the X-ray. So while while he's helping him get the X-ray, I'm back in the room, and the doctor and I are talking, and he was looking at his blood levels. And he said, "There's definitely an infection here." We were like, "Okay." He was telling me the levels and the numbers, and that the platelets and certain the CRP, the CRP, like those levels were elevated. So my husband and Biggs comes back in, and the doctor and Little comes back in. The doctor tells us we're gonna have to do surgery. And my husband and I were like, "Okay." But when he told us when, we really had to just get it together real quick. He was like, "We're gonna have to do surgery tomorrow." So it was January 23rd. That next Wednesday, which was January 24th, he had to go in for surgery. The doctor said, "We can't wait on this because I don't know how far this infection is." He said, "I think we got it early." He said, "To tell you the truth," he said, "infections that I have seen from kids that are similar to Manny has been worse, where it's been pussy." But he didn't tell us that until after the surgery, because he was able to, be in there to see exactly what it looks like. So he said, "I think we're catching," at the appointment, he said, "I think we're catching this early. I want to go in, clean him out, see how far it is. If it's down on the hardware, I'm going to have to clean him out." He said, "I hope I don't have to open his whole incision to clean him." But he's like, "If I have to, that's what I have to do." And then he said, "I'm going to put a super deep vac on him." So we admitted Biggs that day because it made no sense to come home. And we have a special needs child that is in a wheelchair and stuff like that. If you're already at the hospital and your child needs to be admitted, you just do it that day, versus going home, taking them home, because it could be a mess. So we went ahead and admitted him, and his doctor ordered a special bed this time, because when he was there last time, he had just one of those regular hospital bed. This time, he had a bed that had sand in it, so when they turned it on, it blew up, and it kind of massaged, and it helped with the pressure. Also, Biggs was having skin breakdown because his body was trying to use up all the real protein to heal the back. That on his butt, he had got a pressure sore and some breakdown. So we were also dealing with that, but that wasn't infected. So there was just a lot of these complications that came. And again, we were aware that this could happen. I mean, no, we didn't want our son to get an infection. We wanted him to be able to have the surgery, heal correctly, and go on. And I do want to say we did see the benefits of the surgery. He was no longer like this in breathing, like he was sitting up. So just to see that made such it just made my heart glad. But also, like I said, to know that now we have a roadblock. We got to get through this infection. And his doctor did tell us, he said this with kids that's similar to your son, with them not being able to move and not being as robust, they are prone to infection. And out of all the surgeries that Biggs has had, this is the first time he's ever had an infection. So it just was like, okay, what do we need to do outside of the surgery? So my husband and I were already racking our brains about when he gets home, what do we need to have in place to help his healing get better, to help him heal better, so that this thing won't come back again. So one of the things we did get was a air mattress overlay. His insurance paid for that. We got that the same day he came home from from the stay that he had in January. And he stayed from January 23rd all the way up until February. Beginning of February. Yes, he came home that first February and Friday. That first Friday in February he came home. So yeah, he stayed for a couple of days. So we got connected with his infectious disease doctor, who we are still in contact with now because of the antibiotic he's on. So we had a going home plan. The medicines that he was on were all the medicines that he was, as far as like pain management stuff, it was stuff he was on when he had the initial spine surgery. So we were comfortable with that. The only thing that was different this time coming home, like I said, he came home, they gave him a mattress overlay, which made a huge difference. We immediately started seeing a change once he was laying on that mattress overlay. His doctor prescribed that. Well, I don't think it was his doctor. I think it was the wound nurse. The wound nurse prescribed that because with him being on his back, I mean, the pillows were only doing so much. So that air was helping take pressure off. So, trying to wrap this up, guys, because I really don't want this video to be, it's already 38 minutes, but we're going to plow through it, guys. So, I said that. So the air mattress was help take pressure off of his back and off of the incision, and also the skin breakdown on his butt. So we got his infectious disease doctor, and he was on his antibiotic that they had already started in the hospital, and he had a PICC line. This time coming home, he came home with a PICC line. Again, this is another first. He had never, out of all the other surgeries he's had, he never came home with a PICC line. So he came home with a PICC line, and my husband and I had to give him his antibiotic through that PICC line. When we came home that day, that Friday, like I said, the company came and delivered his mattress overlay, and then the nurse came to show us how to do his antibiotic, because he was getting it every 8 hours. That one he was getting it was every 8 hours, I believe. Yeah, every 8 hours he was getting it. So she had to come and show us how to do it and do that first one when he got home within that time frame. So I want to show you guys, this is what he was getting. So what you see in the middle, that was the antibiotic, and over here, these were the flushes and the heparin, and then the same thing, flush and the heparin. So after that got set up, then we got a nurse, because the nurse that initially came out to do all of this, she wasn't the nurse that we were going to have for the next couple of months. So we got our nurse set up, and thankfully we had that nurse until he was discharged from the PIC line. So it was the same nurse coming every 4 days, and she would come and change his caps on his PIC line. She would do his blood, his labs, because his infectious disease doctor still wanted labs because we were keeping an eye on his blood count, his white blood cells, his platelets, his CPR, which was very important because when that number goes down, is letting us know that the infection is going away. So we had her. I do want to show you guys real quick his back. So this is what it looked like. This is what it looked like after the second surgery, the surgery that happened January 24th. So that black stuff that you see around is silver. And what his doctor did this time around that he didn't do in the first surgery is he put staples to make sure that trouble spot, which I'm going to see if I can, it was right along here in that middle. That's where his curve was the most pronounced, and that's the part that wouldn't heal properly, and that's where he got the infection. Oh, let me backtrack. I'm sorry, guys. So the doctor, he did the surgery on the 24th. He went in there, he cleaned him up. It was about, I can't remember how long that surgery was, but it was more than an hour. He cleaned him up really good. And remember when I told you guys earlier that he wasn't for sure if he had to reopen him all the way up? Well, as you can see, he did. And the reason why he did is because he didn't know how deep or far down the infection went, and he wanted to be safe rather than being sorry. So he just opened him all the way up and cleaned him all the way out. And then on his back, he had a super deep back. So it was this tube in his back still, and it was drawing out any infection, any tissue, skin, tissues that may have had infection on it, trying to get that all out. So Biggs actually had 2 surgeries in 1 week in January. He had the one January 24th, and then that Saturday, his doctor went back in and closed him up because with the deep back, he didn't close him. He wanted that to be open so everything can come out, but he was covered. Like he had the dressing, and it was so sterile back there. He had all this dressing, like we couldn't even see that he was open. If you would turn him over and look, you wouldn't even know that that wasn't closed. So, and he did have to get a blood transfusion, which he had one before when he was little, so that wasn't a shock. But he had lost a lot of blood with this surgery in January, and once he got the blood transfusion, things just started turning around for the positive. So he went back Saturday and closed him up, and then from there we just started watching again the same things we watched before, his vitals, seeing how he's responding and this, that, and the other. And he actually Biggs actually responded better this time around than he did from the initial surgery in November. He started making his noises and sounds and his happy noises and kind of just looking around a lot sooner than he did from that first surgery in November. So like I said, we came home. I told you guys about the nurse and all of that. And it was hard. adjust. It was hard with this whole adjusting to him having this PIC line for as long as he did, giving him this antibiotic every 8 hours. And then with that antibiotic that I showed you, it ran for about a half hour. So you put it in, uncap it, and it ran for a half an hour. And then, just making sure you knew that process of which order everything went in. And that's why I had that picture. The nurse, when she came, she said, if you have a camp, if you could take a picture on your phone of the layout that I'm showing you, because this is the order that you're going to want to do his antibiotic in. So I would suggest is going to anybody that may be going through something like this, not saying it's with a spinal surgery, but if you know somebody that's going to have a PIC line and they're coming home with it, and the parents are going to have to be, or you as the parent are going to have to be responsible for giving them their medicine through the PIC line. If there's a specific order for it, I would suggest taking a picture, because it just eased my mind knowing the order, and I wasn't stressed about that. And then my husband, he knew too, because he could see it from my phone. So just dealing with that. There was a point where, I mean, we were tired. Having a nurse come to your house every 4 hours, because my husband and we're the primary caregivers for him. So having her come every 4 days, to do the things she needed to do, because we weren't allowed to do it, and then to draw blood and all of that. It was just a lot. I mean, she was a good nurse. We liked her. She was really good. But I had a moment, and I told my husband, I said, I just felt like I was caring more for my son's post-surgery condition than I was like tending to him as a person. And that bothered me. That really did bother me. I was just so tired. It's like when we had a chance to sleep, we were sleeping. We were still trying to homeschool in the midst, and I'll get to that when I get to the homeschool update. But not Biggs. I mean, with everything that was going on with him, our primary concern was him getting healthy. But with the little one, that's what I mean. So just here's some more pictures. I'm gonna wrap this portion up real quick. So as you guys can see, it started healing, and that part right there, like I said, that was the trouble part. That was the trouble part, but it looks so much better. We talked to his infectious disease doctor about giving him a probiotic. He had no problem with him getting a probiotic along with the antibiotic, and we've noticed him just improving. His skin looks so much better. I'm gonna try to show you guys another picture really quickly, but his skin and his back looks so much better. We also had to change his formula. He was getting Peppermint Junior 1.5, and now he's just getting regular, just the adult formula Peppermint. And he's thriving. He's doing good. Here's another picture. This is a recent picture. He did have a little bit of minor skin breakdown, but nothing major. And again, when that happened, I immediately called his doctor, or sent a message in a picture through my chart. And that's another thing real quick about my chart that was very helpful. I was able to take pictures along the way of his back and how it was progressing, whether it was good or whether it was, going bad. And I do have a picture of his infection, but I'm not going to show you guys that. But I was able to take those pictures and send it to his doctor so he can see, instead of waiting to see us in person to see exactly what it looks like. And that really helped with, I think, staying on top of this. And I think also just what my husband and I tried to do as far as taking the precautions to get his body in the best health that it could be. I think we got on this quickly, because his doctor said after he did the cleaning, he said, we got this early, because like he said, some kids that have had infections like Biggs, he said it's like real pussy. And he said his was more of like dirty dishwater. So I was just, I had to just, as a parent, sometimes it's like you don't want to, I don't want to say be prideful in a negative way. I'm not trying to say it like that, but you, sometimes we sell ourselves short. That's what I want to say. And this time I was just so proud of myself. I'm like, we did this. Me and my husband, are, we were communicating about what was going on, keeping the doctor in the loop, because I was the primary caregiver as far as his back and everything. You know, I was always letting my husband know what was going on and this, that, and the other, and showing him what was going on and stuff like that. So I really believe with us giving him these things before his surgery and even now after, along with being diligent, it really helped him to get through this. And we are hoping for a good recovery. When November 29th comes around next year, he'll be a year out from his initial surgery. But that is what he's looking like. And guys, I mean, you couldn't see it in the other pictures before, but he had a lot of dry skin patches on his back. And so all of that is healing, which means his nutrition is good. The proteins that he's getting in his body are helping. So that's that. That's why I have not been on YouTube, because I need to focus on that and just being in the best mental space I could for my son and being there for him and helping our youngest son through this. Because in 2016, when he had the hip surgery, he was younger. He was five at the time, I believe. So that was his first time ever really dealing with his brother having a surgery and what that means and this, that, and the other. And now that he was older this time, you know, he was 6 going on 7. He was a lot more inquisitive about what's going on and this, that, and the other, which takes me into homeschooling. From September up until the beginning of November, we were on it. The plans that I had for little, we were doing it. We were sticking to our schedule. I knew once November came around, things could go up in the air. But as I reflected over it, I realized little got a lot of learning, a lot of hands-on learning, because we spent every day at the hospital. There was nights my husband stayed the night at the hospital, and I would be home with little, and then the next night I would stay at the hospital, and my husband would come home with little. And that helped, because in the past, when we didn't have our youngest son and Biggs would have to be in the hospital, my husband would always stay the night, and so that would tire him out a lot. So this time around, we switched off, and it just helped both of us. But anyway, back to the homeschooling. So when November came, I started planning for how we were going to go about these next couple of months, because I didn't want it to be so rigid, because I didn't know what was going to go on with Biggs. And of course, in the back of my mind, I was preparing for what if he has an infection and he has to go back in. I didn't think surgery was going to be the end result for that, but I didn't want to be so fixed on this is our school routine and this is our school schedule that our house is unpeaceful. It's not peaceful because of that. And I can't focus on my oldest son, his healing, because we gotta stay on schedule. So we were really loose. Those from November going into even now, June. But like I said, as I look back at it, I realized how much little got, because every appointment, every post-op appointment and pre-op appointment, that's what I meant. Every pre-op appointment, little was there, and he would ask questions, and because he knew the surgeon from before, he liked him and he had a rapport with him, but he asked questions. when we were up in the hospital, we have a relationship. Our family has a relationship with the palliative care team because our son is a patient of theirs, and they've known us since our oldest was little. So we would go to the expressive art therapy room, and little would be able to do art. Sometimes some of the people we knew would come to the room and hang out with him. I brought worksheets. He would sit. Little would sit for hours. I'm serious, hours, and watch the hospital educational channel. And the nurses would come in and say, "What is he watching?" And he said, "Oh, I'm watching the hospital educational channel." And so he's telling them about what anesthesia is. And they were just looking like, "Oh my goodness." And he said, that's what my big brother had to have. He had to have anesthesia to help him go to sleep so he wouldn't feel any pain. And he he learned about when kids have surgery, they're not supposed to eat by a certain time so that their stomachs aren't upset and it doesn't affect the anesthesia. He knew what an anesthesiologist is. He was learning about cancer and diabetes and all of this from this channel. And asking the nurses questions. What's like on Biggs's monitor that showed his vitals. What's that number for? What's that number for? What's that number for? If Biggs did anything like cough or something like that, he would run over, "Are you okay?" Or he would tell the nurses, certain things. And so he was involved every step of the way, and it was just awesome. And like I said, he learned. Now, really quickly, what I'm going to show you guys, I'm not going to go too in depth, but I'm just going to show you guys some of the things that was staples for us throughout the year. We use these a lot. These came to the hospital with us. We use these a lot. Love these cards. Love these cards. He did kitchen science at our local library. He was also still doing our co-op, and then for a little bit we were doing another co-op. So he got things, other things through the co-ops: art, sign language, health, music. We were using this, a little bit of this for math. This was more in the beginning of the school year. We are using this, still using this. Love this. How it's set up is really quickly set up like this. So you got the ending sound, and then you can fold it, and it gives you other words with the beginning sound, with the beginning sounds. we we were doing this game. Love this game, Triversity. It is a spelling game, fun game. He was doing this for math as well. We were doing this for money and math. Money. This was another popular game. He really took off into doing this game this year. It's called Race to Read. It has parts of speech, antonyms, synonyms, homophones, automatopoeias, anagrams, missing vowels, definitions, context clues, things like that. He really got into that this year. You know what, guys? I think that's going to be it. I don't want to go into that bag. I don't want to make this video longer than what it is. But these things, along with a couple of other things down in that bag, were staples throughout the school year. And like I said, he got a lot of just real life learning in it, and real life learning. So that's that. As far as my channel is concerned, I would not be focusing my channel on homeschooling as much. With Biggs being 16, we are approaching critical years as far as transitioning into adulthood, and I really want to give him the attention that he needs concerning this, and concerning just this process of transitioning into adulthood in the next 4 years, and we really want to enjoy him still being a teen. I think as he approaches 17, definitely 17, we'll be looking into guardianship. I think that's what it's called. I know there was another mom on here, Sylvia, her daughter, Bethany. They went through that, and if I'm saying it wrong, please help me because I can't remember. But when your child is 18, you have to like legally do some stuff to still have them under your care and custody. I haven't looked into that much because we're not there yet, but most likely we're going to be looking into that when he's 17. Um, but yeah, I'm not there right now trying to do homeschool videos. I'm really trying to improve my health. I did gain weight while we were at the hospital because we couldn't they didn't have a refrigerator where the parents could keep their food, which changed when Biggs was little. When he was little, they used to have a family kitchen, and there was a refrigerator specifically for the families on that floor, and you could bring food from your home. You would just go up to the nurse's station, tell them your child's name and everything. They would print out a label with your child's name and their room number on it, and their hospital, their band, their number, and you could put that on the refrigerator. They didn't have that this time. They got rid of that a long time ago. Um, so we had people bringing us food and stuff like that, and then not sleeping well. Just all of that added up. So I did gain about 11 pounds. So I'm trying to refocus on my health. Um, just the total man, my total self. Um, Things that I like, crafting and reading. So now I'm kind of moving into my channel update. I will not be doing homeschool videos. I'll come in and do updates on how homeschooling is going, especially with Little because he's the one that's really getting it. Um, but my channel is going to be going more towards just life and personal development, personal challenges, whether it be techniques and crafts that I'm trying to learn, whether it be health related, whether it be learning related for myself. So my goal, what I would like to do is do at the end of the month, and this is definitely not an original idea of mine. I've seen other people do it on YouTube, but my monthly favorite. So I'm thinking about doing what I'm reading, what I'm making. I might do a hairstyle that I've really been liking that's easy for natural hair. Um, I might throw in a favorite exercise that I've been really into for that month. I haven't narrowed it down yet, but I'm working on it. And I'm thinking about changing my channel name to include where I'm going. So that's that. It also might be, what is my favorite product? It could be a hair product. It could be a skin product, something. Um, I want to be more a part of the crafting community. Crafting for me has been very therapeutic. Just to get in there, create something, and not try to be so systematic in my head, because sometimes I'm like that. I try to be so systematic and so kind of perfectionist, and I'm really trying to break away from that a little bit, just a little bit. And so crafting does that for me. It allows me to just be relaxed, and it's really helped me these last couple of months with dealing with some other things that I've dealt with concerning just life and everything we've been through. Crafting has really been helpful. So I'm going to be doing a lot more crafting videos, and I want to participate in challenges. I want to try to do Happy Mail and all of that stuff. Um, I'm going to put my email down in the link below in case, somebody wants to do Happy Mail with me. They can contact me through email and we can, exchange information that way. I'm still thinking about getting a P.O. box, but until then, if that happens, you guys will know. But that's that, guys. If you have any other questions, please comment down below. I keep apologizing for this video being so long, but because I normally don't make long videos like this, but I just wanted to get it done and get it out to you guys and have the energy to do it. And so yeah, and just lump all of these things together. So that's that. With all of that being said, thank you all again. Like I said, I welcome your comments. I welcome your suggestions. And catch me on my next video. Bye.